Hi, welcome to this week's On the Level Leadership Moment, and this week we're talking about enabling others to act. Once again, we're heading to Kuz and Posner. Welcome everybody to this week's installment of On the Level Leadership. It's a very, very, very gray day here today. It is a cold November morning. And I'm in my kitchen area because it's the only place where there's a decent amount of lighting in this house, and unfortunately don't have other lighting to work with at the moment. So today we want to talk about enabling others to act. It's principle number 4 of the 5 principles that Kuz and Posner talk about. And to me, well, they're all important, but I think it's one that fosters the most morale and the highest amount of productivity in my personal opinion. So the question is, in how enabling other people, what do we have to do as leaders to be able to enable others around us to act? And there's 2 ways that we can do that. The first way is in fostering collaboration, and the other way is in how we strengthen others around us. So how does one foster collaboration? So there are 2 major things that you could do in order to do that. One is you have to have an environment of trust. You have to develop a culture of trust within your organization. And the other is you need to be able to facilitate relationships within that organization. Trust is something, again, if I'm honest about this channel and what I'm trying to achieve with this channel in terms of sharing these leadership tidbits, it's really about my no-nonsense approach to things. And establishing trust for me is a primordial piece of the equation. Without that big puzzle piece, you have nothing in your organization. Trust is everything, and it takes quite a bit to earn that trust, and it can be lost in a heartbeat. So it's one of those things that, again, I try to espouse as much as I can as a leader in an organization, is to establish an environment of trust. How do we do that? Well, it's not complicated. The way that you establish trust is you trust first. It's sort of the key principle. I mean, what's one of those things that Leadership Challenge that Kuz and Posner talk about is that in order for trust to be established in an organization, you as a leader, whether it's positional or otherwise, have to trust first. I have seen the detriments personally of an organization that lacks trust. What you see are employees who don't trust the messenger, so therefore they don't trust the message, are perhaps more resistant to change, will be unwilling to follow direction. You may find the morale of your organization bottom out because people don't trust those that are around them. And as a positional leader in an organization, from the CEO right down to a project manager, you need to trust the folks that you work around with and the people who report to you to do the work and to do the best that they possibly can, because ultimately, and I've said this in previous vlogs, people will give you what you expect of them. And if you expect them to not be trustworthy or to need to be micromanaged, then what you're going to get is staff that are despondent and are not interested or engaged, and may in fact not produce at the level that you want them to produce at because of this lack of morale. So in creating a climate of trust is super important if you want to enable your organization to be more collaborative, and if you want people to actually act and make decisions within that organization. Another way that you can create trust is showing concern for others. In my previous vlog, I talked about how there was a group of people whose manager didn't even know their names. For years, he managed this team and didn't know anybody's names and just called them like, hey, you, or some other expletive adjective for them. That really disabled a trusting environment, because, man, if you can't even make the effort to know somebody's name, then why the hell would I trust you, right? So I think, investing in trust means trust first. We've already established that. But the other piece is that you need to show concern for other people, and that's something that Kuz and Posner go into great detail about. You got to give a crap, man. You got to give a crap. You got to walk the floor. You have to talk to people in your team. You have to see what your organization's about. You need to be willing to listen to what people say to you. So fostering that collaborative environment means establishing an environment of trust where somebody can share a concept with you, an idea, and not be reprimanded or be belittled. We talked about encouraging the heart a couple of weeks ago and how that's super important in terms of recognizing people's input into an organization, the kinds of things they've done, the successes they've had, etc. That's really important too in establishing a trusting environment, because if you come in as a new leader and everything people did before you showed up is garbage, you're not establishing an environment of trust. I hate to tell you, but you're part of the problem with morale in the organization. And I think coming in as, and this is especially important if you're a change manager, if you've been hired to change manage an organization, establishing an environment of trust is primordial to your success, because you will not get people on board with the change if they don't trust you. And so that's a super important piece of the pie if you want any kind of success in your mandate that you've been given. And then I would have to say that one of the other piece to this is sharing information. There's often a concern in organizations of sharing too much information, either because they don't want to cause panic, i.e. we're reviewing the org chart. Well, that can cause panic in people. Is my job at risk? Am I going to be fired? Am I going to be demoted? Am I going to be moved to a different organization? Am I going to have to report to that guy that I really can't stand over there? These things all cause anxiety and can actually cause a level of distrust. So if you're not open about your processes and what you're thinking of doing in an organization and what the changes are that may be anticipated, you're going to get a lot of pushback from people, and that trust will dissolve very, very quickly. So again, be open with the information. Obviously, you have to be strategic. I mean, as a CEO, you're not going to share everything about your strategic thinking, but I think it's important to at least give people a level of comfort, a level of information that allows them to not start guessing about what the organization is doing. I think the more information you share with people, the more trustworthy you will be to them. I had very specific circumstances within my tenure as a manager and as a leader of staff where very, very difficult situations would come up. Either grievances would show up, or there would be situations around occupational health or whatever. And one of the biggest things that I could do that established trust in my organization was being able to share as much knowledge as I possibly could without, of course, crossing the lines. And what I mean by that is there may be times when you can't share information because it's confidential, because it's illegal to do so, it's not your place, that kind of thing. So clearly there are reasons for not sharing information. But I think where possible and feasible, the more you share, the better it's going to be. So I think that's just the way to go in future, and that will really, really, really help you to establish trust in your organization. The other piece to this is fostering relationships. So in order to enable others to act, you need to establish strong relationships. Okay, so what does that mean? It means encouraging face-to-face interactions. Now, we live in a very electronic world. We do a lot of teleworking. I personally telework, and I love it. It allows me to focus and concentrate on things without the distractions of the office, especially in an open office environment. So given that we work more and more with technology, I think it's even more imperative that we create the face-to-face interactions. It might only be once a week, but the reality is there needs to be that face-to-face so you can establish that relationship with the person across from you, whether it's your direct report or your manager that you're providing information to. But fostering a collaborative relationship and really investing in relationships in the office. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and have a beer every Friday with people, but at least have some congeniality, that there be some level of civility in how we talk to each other and how we engage with each other. It's all kind of important, because if you foster that kind of relationship building within the office, not only are you also adding to the trust piece, but you're going to have people feel more comfortable sharing challenges as they pop up, so that you can course correct maybe more quickly and not get down the path of really getting into trouble as an organization. Being able to foster those relationships means that people will come to you with good ideas, and sometimes, as I've said before, sometimes the best ideas come from the quietest voice. So if you allow that opportunity for people to say things in a way that is comfortable, then you may get really great ideas that could ultimately increase your bottom line profit margins, for example. So really the idea here is to build and foster those relationships so that you're not only building the trust, but you're actually exchanging more information on a more regular basis. You become, as Senge would say, a learning environment, a learning culture, and a learning organization. And a learning organization is one that will be successful. So as leaders, we have to be explicit in how we share our messaging to people. We have to be explicit in telling people that I trust you. But more importantly, you need to walk the talk. Circling around to the very first concepts, right, within the leadership challenge. You need to walk the talk. So if you trust your staff, or you're saying that you trust your staff, then you need to trust your staff. It means letting them make decisions. It means delegating authority to the lowest possible levels. It means allowing people to grow and learn. And it means allowing people to course correct at their level so that it doesn't escalate to the point where you need to, at either an executive level or higher, have to manage a situation. You want the program level people to manage issues. I come back to Disney all the time because everybody knows this is a complete passion of mine. But Disney does this really well. They have enabled the cast members to make decisions at the very lowest level so that they can add magic to a person's day. That is huge. So for example, you will sometimes you'll see this. If you go on YouTube and you look at Gaston interactions, for example, what you'll often see is, let's say there's a child crying in the park. You know, Gaston will just stop his picture taking and he'll walk over and he'll say, "Get this kid a cinnamon roll." And he is enabled to do that. It's a slight decision. It's a small thing. It's a $4 treat. But the reality is that little treat makes that little girl's day, which makes the parents' day, which is, it trickles into a magical moment that then trickles into that person's enjoying the day more, which ultimately affects the whole park. Because if everybody's adding a bit of sprinkle of magic pixie dust during their day as a cast member, the whole park is then elevated. It's the same concept as that. If you trust your employees and you can make their days magical by allowing them to make decisions and by allowing them to have a say and by allowing them to share ideas in a safe and productive environment that's trusting, there's really nowhere that your organization can't go. That's a really quick summary of how to enable others within your organization. You need to get that trust going in your organization. You have to trust first. As a positional leader, it is your responsibility to trust first. And if you do that, you will ultimately build trust at the lower levels in your leadership, but more importantly, as a whole of the organization. And you need to foster those relationships so that people feel comfortable with each other, they can share information. And you know what? Even arguing changes in the office when you foster collaboration, because people will be more respectful and the civility levels will go up, and so will your overall feeling of morale that you have in your organization. So there you have it. Thanks again for watching this week's On the Level Leadership Moment. Remember, if you like these weekly tidbits, I've changed it to Fridays. So every Friday you can come and watch this channel. Feel free to subscribe and press the bell notification and you'll be notified as soon as I upload a new video. Thanks again for watching. See you next week.